Welcome, Anne Stokes, to Online Events, series of interviews with OCTIA organisers. So thanks for coming online tonight and participating in our interview.
Okay.
And I guess, and I wanted to start with asking you how you got into the organising team. How did you start all this?
Right. Well, when Jill Jones and I first published our book on online counselling, well, just before it was published, we thought it'd be nice to have some sort of little event to publicise it really, and to sort of draw attention to online counselling. And so we thought we might do something sort of fairly low key, a little conference or something. And then it grew. We decided that it would be nice to include some online stuff with sort of delegates in the flesh, and I think that's probably when other people, including yourself, came in, because neither Jill nor I had a clue how we might do this, but luckily you were around in terms of technology, and other people were around in terms of ideas. And so we organised the first conference last year in Leicester, which was incredibly successful. You might remember back that I'm one of the doubting Thomases in online work, and I couldn't see how on earth we were going to have a conference actually with delegates all over the world sort of coming in through the ether, and people in Manchester, and we did, and it was fantastic and wonderful and just totally amazing. And so here we are again, organising the second one.
Thinking about this year, you were saying something about the BACP's contribution to the conference?
Yes, that's one of the things that's really exciting me, because there's a lot obviously in counselling press at the moment around registration, and I really would like to know where BACP sits, or have they a view at the moment as to how people who are working online fit into the whole process of registration. Are there any difficulties? How do we have to sort of prove what we're doing as being reliable and effective, etc.? Will we, with registration, maybe have to think about, well, we are all trained, but will people generally have to think about training in online work, etc.? So I'm really curious to know where BACP sit on this, and I feel very heartened that Sally Aldridge is coming, because it seems to me to say we are interested in BACP with online work. And of course, at one level I'm not surprised, because Kate Anthony and Stephen Goss did the third edition of the guidelines not that long ago, so it does tell me that BACP are really on board. But I guess we get very few opportunities to actually talk to BACP personnel about online work, so it feels a real opportunity, and I hope that delegates both in Manchester and online will have some interesting questions to ask Sally when she's there giving her input. I felt quite heartened. I'm trying to think how long ago it is. It was sometime during last year. I actually went to Lutterworth, and I talked with BACP ethical team, the group people that answer the questions that come in about online work, well, about all sorts of counselling, but in this case online work, and they were really interested, and really sort of felt as though they were getting to grips with it. So hopefully this is another step on.
What about your workshop, Anne?
Right, well, I'm doing one on supervision. As you probably know, sort of online supervision is one of my passions, but I think we do need to ask some fairly critical questions about it. It could be seen as a cop-out, really, that sort of it's fairly easy to either have an online meeting with your supervisor or work by emails, and does that really get to the nub of the work? Is it robust enough? How do we equate the hours? If we think about BACP, the need for an hour and a half, at least a month supervision, how do we equate emails? How do we equate online time? Is it just the same as, if you like, real face-to-face time, or not? And is it easier to hide online? Can supervisors miss things? Do online supervisors need to be trained in online supervision? Of course, I would say yes to that, wouldn't I? But
yes.
You know, I think it's a valid question. And also, is it possible to supervise face-to-face clients in an online environment? You know, if I think of somebody perhaps working as a counsellor in, let's go for the Orkneys, they may not be able to get face-to-face supervision, or it may be very costly because they may have to go to the mainland, or they may know every other counsellor on the Orkneys and it doesn't feel, you know, there's too many boundary issues. So is it valid for them to do online work for their face-to-face clients? If not, that raises, I think, a whole question about how we view online work, and if it is, then should it just be for people who've got perhaps geographical issues or issues of disability? There are so many questions that I think you can raise about online supervision as to whether it is okay or not.
Yeah.
Of course, I think it is, but I hope we're going to have a really hearty discussion in the workshop, and maybe raise points that I haven't thought of that'll sort of perhaps throw me off balance, which is no bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're both passionate about being able to do supervision online, but it's like you're saying, well, let's not just take it for granted and just say, well, it's great, it's fine, let's really ask some good questions about it. That's what you're going to be doing at the conference.
Yeah, I think too often as counsellors we aren't prepared to be scrutinised. I mean, I think in the past that's shown by a paucity of research in both face-to-face and online counselling, and I think we've got to face up to scrutiny and be accountable.
Yeah, and if these questions are appealing to anyone who's watching this interview, come to Manchester, because your presentation is going to be available uniquely to the Manchester delegates, so it's a real reason to come in person.
Yeah, it would be good to see people there. Yeah,
I think that's really something to be very excited about. It's going to be an excellent workshop. And I think the last thing we're going to say is, well, what about the technology? I mean, we've struggled a little bit to get our interview together here. Should that put people off?
We have struggled a bit, haven't we? No, I don't think it should. I am certainly of the OCTIA organising group. I am probably by far the least technologically able, and we've managed. I've managed with all the meetings up to this, which of course are held online as we planned this. We've managed with this interview, and certainly I've learned quite a bit, and I'm not sure whether you have, but you've been very patient. But I don't think people should be put off, because as long as you've got a basic ability, and more importantly probably, as long as you've got somebody you can call on, then don't worry about it. And certainly as far as the conference is concerned, there are I don't think there are problems there, because last year you managed to get the delegates in and out of the room as they needed to be, sort of very well. So don't be put off by thinking, oh, I couldn't do this. In fact, if you're thinking about being an online delegate, just think you can actually do the CPD sitting in your own home and talk to other people as well. I don't mean, what could be better? The one thing that I guess that people online will miss out on are, to some extent, are actually sort of meeting in person some of the presenters and the other people there in the flesh, and being able maybe to have sort of odd conversations over breaks and things. But there's a lot online that makes up for that, so you know, you decide which is right for you.
Well, thanks for making the time tonight for our interview tonight.
Okay.
And we'll look forward to seeing you in Manchester in a few weeks, really.
Yep, that'd be great. Okay, thanks, John. Been good.
Thank you, Anne.